it's just like when you can approach things differently, that's how you can really unlock the doors to being able to leverage your abilities to achieve the same outcome, just in a different way.
ADHD Rewired, episode 104. This is the show designed to help those of us who have really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. My name is Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, coach, and consultant. We know that starting can be the hardest part, so let's get started. But first, let me thank our sponsors. Support for this podcast comes from Audible. For a free audiobook download, go to erictivers.com/audible for a link for that free download and for some hand-picked recommendations. Go to erictivers.com/audible for your free audiobook download. Are you or someone you know looking to hire a speaker to talk about ADHD? Go to ADHDrewired.com and click the speaking tab. Fill out the form there and we'll be in touch. That's ADHDrewired.com. Click on speaking. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired. I am really happy to have in the virtual studios my guest, Tanner Gears. Tanner is a published author, professional speaker, U.S. Paralympian, founder of Absolutely Lean, and host of the Athlete Summit podcast. He's spoken for clients across the U.S. like Wounded Warriors, numerous universities and corporations on performance, productivity, and leadership, as well as actively consults individuals for health, fitness, and sports performance goals. Tanner's big mission in life is to help people across the world achieve their potential with his gift for cultivating confidence, determination, and the will needed to achieve greatness in every area of life, regardless of circumstance. Oh yeah, Tanner, he's completely blind and he manages ADHD. Tanner, what's going on, man? How are you?
Oh, Eric, I'm doing so amazing. I'm feeling so grateful right now to be on ADHD Rewired and spending a little time with your audience. So thanks for having me on, and great job reading that intro.
Well, it was a good intro. It's sometimes I get novels and I have to edit it at the last minute. And then right. So it's, and I think your intro, the thing that you shared barely scratches the surface of who you are. And I love how you just added as the total ADHD footnote. Oh yeah, I'm blind. So tell us, let's just start there. Tell us that story.
Yeah. So, okay. Great question. I actually lost my sight as an adult. When I was 21, I was in a really traumatic auto accident. I lost control of my car, and a tree ultimately came through my windshield, impaling me in the face. And of course, I had massive head trauma. Broke every bone in my face, my jaw, my nose. I have implants in my cheek, and the tree hit me so hard in the face, actually, that my left eye was blown from the socket. A chunk of my forehead, my skull, was actually blown away. You could see my brain. It was exposed to the air. I broke my back also in that accident, and just a huge amount of glass. Surprisingly, I never lost consciousness from the impact, just from the blood loss, about 45 minutes later or so. And, amazingly made it to the hospital. And, there they saved my life.
Wow. That's, so your brain was exposed, your eye popped out, you said. It sounds like an accident that you're lucky to still be alive, from.
I am completely lucky to be alive. And, they didn't really know if I was going to, be a mental vegetable or if I was going to walk again. They were pretty certain that I wasn't going to see again. And 19 days later, after getting to the hospital, I did wake up from a surgery totally blind. So I lost it immediately, obviously, out of the left eye. And then 19 days later, then lost it out of the right eye. And so that was super tough for my parents, because as I was just kind of, starting to move, we had this other tremendous setback.
So what was going on in your life at that moment, right before the accident?
Wow. So that was a really big kind of transitional moment for me. I was struggling a lot, and I, when I was growing up, my dad wasn't around a lot, and we didn't have a lot of money, and so I was just kind of like rebelling. College wasn't the deal for me. I went to college and dropped out. I was really going through a really hard time and not making the right decisions. And then I finally kind of woke up and decided, you know what, I have got to make something of my life. This is just a path to nowhere. And so I needed to get out of town and really just kind of learn, discipline and structure. And so I wanted to enlist in the military. 9/11 really impacted me. It resonated with me. And so I wanted to serve our country. And I was in the process of enlisting into the military. And I was deep into the enlistment process, just, moments away from signing my name on the line. And that's when the accident happened.
Wow. Huh.
Yeah, so I was just trying to like pull it together, right? And so, in the recovery stages, it was, it was like I thought I was pretty much at rock bottom before I finally decided to pick myself up and get into the military. And then here I am now, no real college education, no real understanding of what my life's going to become. I really thought my life was over, that it was meaningless, and really I thought my life was hopeless.
Wow. Talk a little bit about, if you would, what the and I'm sure the physical recovery was probably a grueling process, but talk to us about the kind of mental recovery of, oh my, like, you got the second chance at life. Like, yes, you are now blind, and that is, to say that changes everything is probably an understatement.
Yeah, as little as my dad was around when I was growing up, he actually helped me regain the perspective I needed to mentally handle this situation.
How so?
Yeah. So, at the time now, I'm a bag of bones. I can barely hold myself up. I still have a lot of surgeries ahead of me, still going through surgeries. I have at-home IV medications, like piles of pills that I take all the time, and no guidance in what's going to happen next. And really, and at this moment too, like my life is in jeopardy because I have a brain infection that's killing me. So my dad sees me hunched over, and, he comes over and he says, "Chin up." And I don't even move. And so he knows that something's really wrong. And he sits down next to me and he says, "Tanner, what's wrong? Is there anything I can do?" And I said, "No, there's not. You can't do anything. I am blind. And you don't know what it's like. You don't know what I'm feeling. And there's nothing you can do. This is it." And he says, "You know what, Tanner, you're right. You are blind. And I can't do anything about it. But, you're blind and you should be in a wheelchair. Tanner, you're blind. You should be in a wheelchair, and mentally, you should be a vegetable. As a matter of fact, Tanner, you should be dead." And so he let me sit on that for a second. And that was just kind of the wake-up call that I needed. And then his next words was really what kind of put that in perspective for me, because he said, "Tanner, yeah, you're blind, but it could always be worse." And, so when you maintain that perspective, no matter how difficult your situation is, no matter where you find yourself, when you realize that, it could always be worse, any day, spent on the good side of grass, meaning, any day that you're not dead, that's a good day. And it could always be worse. So, what are you going to do about it?
Wow. So what did you do about it?
So that's when I really started to pick myself up, dust it off, and get after it. Now, so my accident was, March 28th, 2004. I got out of the hospital Memorial Day weekend in May. And in between there and August, within 2 months, I was enrolled in college. I was taking, I was learning skills on how to be blind, how to access the computer, took 2 college courses. January of 2005, ended up moving out of my parents' house to learn how to live independently as a blind person. So I graduated I'll never forget it, graduated April 14th from that program. April 15th, signed the lease on my first place. That summer, went to Guide Dogs for the Blind, got my guide dog. And by August of 2005, I was living on my own, enrolled in college full time, and living independently.
Did you have like before? Wow. I think like take away the accident, everything that you just described in that about 1 year period, I think would be a successful year for anybody. Did you have that sense of like resiliency and tenacity before this accident?
I really had this kind of, mentality, and it was, not to my benefit in many cases, but I really had developed this kind of mentality that I'm going to do this on my own,
Okay.
right? No matter what it takes, I'm going to figure it out. And, so yeah, I did use that. And we were always moving around, when I was growing up. So I was always the new kid. So being in a new situation my entire life kind of really prepared me to be in the new situation for the rest of my life. Because it is a sighted world. It is a world where, it is an attention world, right? So ADHD, holds you back. It can if you let it. Blindness holds you back, and it can if you let it. So, I really did kind of develop that tenacity. And, so, rewinding that a little bit, I had 2 brain surgeries in the fall semester of that first college semester as a blind individual. And, I'm in ICU. I've got like 50 something staples in my forehead, and I'm taking exams over the phone because that's what needs to be done. Right. So, instead of asking how you're going to do it, just do the best that you can in the moment, and do what it takes. Because, time's going to pass anyway. So what are you going to do with this moment to make the best thing out of it?
Well, Tina, when did you learn that you had ADHD?
I was in 4th grade, had my parents were contacted by the school and went through. So I didn't know, I just went through these tests or these evaluations. And then, next thing I know, I'm taking Ritalin.
And what was that like for you? Was that a good thing for you? Was that, share that with us?
Yeah, I think that, at a very surface level, it was good. They definitely noticed some, quote unquote improvements in my ability to retain attention on tasks. But it's so funny. And I think a lot of people can relate to this. We looked at recently, my mom is clearing out her house, and, so we're going through all this old stuff, and she didn't want to throw it away. She wanted my brother and I to make the decision if we wanted to throw something away. So, we had like report cards and tests and, these evaluations. And so two really stuck out in my head. One was the physical performance evaluations in the fall and spring semester. I think that was fifth grade. And so I'm like doing all these, like I'm in like, 90 percentile, 95th percentile for all these performance measures, like, push-ups, pull-ups, the mile, etc. And then the spring semester, right? So a year goes by and all my metrics are down.
And this is just for like PE you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like I ran like an 8-minute mile or something, and then in the fall, and then I ran like a 9-minute mile in the spring. And it's like, well, what happened with that? I was so checked out. Like I was so bored and just like, that, like even in physical activity, I wasn't, I couldn't maintain the focus. So checked out. And then the other one too, is I was always really good at math. And mental math, right? Because I don't have time. I can't retain attention enough to show my work. But so like it was mind blowing to me. I was on the math decathlon team, but I only got B's on my math grades. So that was kind of interesting too.
So there were some areas of maybe inconsistency and I find that, I hear that so often about not being able to show work for a variety of reasons, despite, understanding the work. It's just, you can't slow the brain down enough to be able to explain the process.
Just a light went off for me. I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
So, all right. So we were talking last week, Tanner, about, managing, how does one, you think about managing life being blind as this whole, that's one, challenge that you face on a daily basis. And then managing that in with having ADHD. And we were talking about like the challenges that must kind of create, because I know for myself, I rely so heavily on visual reminders to cue me. And so we were talking about, what do you use to kind of cue yourself to help you remember what you need to be doing at any given moment?
Yeah. So, obviously everybody with ADHD, ADD, we have to do things a little bit differently. We get those visual reminders and just thinking about how I approach everything with blindness, I still need those same reminders. But I just have to figure out a way to get them, in an audio format. So thank goodness for smartphones and technology and things like that. Because, if it was back like when Ray Charles lost his sight, I would be up a creek. So I have, my iPhone, I've got my schedule laid out from the day. And it's like, hey, when this goes off, it's time to do this. When I get this alarm, I look at it, it gives me the reminder, and then I just have to switch focus and get back to it. And I think that's really great for me. And I think a lot of people listening to this can relate, is that, we can kind of get bored, or our productivity level it just doesn't seem to maintain a high level for a longer period of time. So if you can just be, really, persistent, or I guess if you can just shift to that next thing and really get focused on that for a second, we can maintain that higher level of productivity. And then when it's time to switch, we can put that higher productivity level in something completely different. That's something that's worked for me, is just having those audio alarms to just shift my focus from one thing to the next. Because if I don't have that, all of a sudden it's like 7 p.m. and it's like, where did the day go?
Well, I know I've certainly had many of days like that. Now, do you have any difficulties with attention shifting? Shifting from one thing to the next.
Oh my gosh! So as we were talking before we hopped on the call a minute ago, I was telling you that I interviewed somebody this morning, and so I'm listening, and then the ADHD kicked in and my mind went somewhere completely different. And, so the next question I asked, I could tell that he was like, oh, you weren't listening to what I just said.
Did he call you out on it, or was it just kind of this awkward moment?
No, he was a pro. You know what I mean? Like he was just like, and then just like kind of kept rolling with it. So I'm gonna have to do some editing magic on that. But yeah, I mean, it happens all the time, and then especially too with being blind, right? So we're so, you know, because I don't have those visual cues, right? So um, I can get lost in my mind, so deeply, and it just like, it's like memory to what do I got to do today to what did I do yesterday. I'm kind of getting hungry. Should I get some water? Oh, I have to send that email. Crap, I should have sent those 10 emails like yesterday. So and then it's like, oh yeah, I should probably do something instead of just thinking about it. So yeah, my mind wanders ridiculously.
I think that like 10 seconds of what you were just describing, like I just had this huge smile on my face because I was, I think that highlighted our experience so, just so accurately of like, take any snapshot of any moment of someone with ADHD, and that's kind of what's going on inside their head.
It's so when I was I've worked really hard on this, like, now, because it's so important, like just remembering people's names. And so when I was in high school, I was like a face person. Like I would never forget a face. Well, that sucks when you're blind. So I would do my best to like someone would come and be like, "Hey Tanner, what's going on?" I'm like, "Hey brother, how are you?" And I would just hope someone else would say their name. But like even to this day, people say, "Oh, do you remember this person?" I'm like, "Oh yeah," but I don't remember them. I just remember their face. And so, again, up a creek on that one.
So Tanner, I have I can't say that I'm blind, and I've always been crappy with remembering names. I view it as like my biggest like social liability. Like the part of my brain that is like responsible for remembering names, it just like doesn't work. However, I'm so intrigued by the rare occasion that someone's like name just for some reason sticks in my brain. I can remember it and I can recall it. So I'm so curious about those moments. Like, why is it on those particular moments I was able to access that part of my brain? But no,
Yeah.
I hate that. I hate that it's so hard for me to remember names.
So I think it was a Dale Carnegie book that I read where it was talking about how to remember people's names. And so what I try to do is like say their name like almost obsessively
Uh-huh.
when I first meet them.
I try it. I
You
write it
know,
down. I even try drawing a picture of the person. Like, and I'm not like an artist by any means, just something so I'm like mentally doing something with this information. Um, yeah, I try to think of the associations, all of those tricks that you can find about how to remember names. I feel like I really have given like all of them a really good effort. None of them really seem to work. It's like the one area that I have not found a strategy to help. So the thing that I usually do is just when I'm meeting someone, I just say I'm really bad at names, and I might ask her name at least 5 different times. And please, I'll remember everything else you tell me, but for whatever reason, your name won't stick.
well,
And when and it's easy when you're in an ADHD conference, that's easy.
right.
But I do that in other places too, because it's if people want to have judgments about that, fine, whatever. It's I'm not doing it on purpose. So
That's the one area or one of the areas where being blind is really like an advantage, because you can say like, "Oh, is that Chris?" And it's like, "No, it's Brian." And it's like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
and
You
no
should.
one's gonna give you a hard time about it, because if they do, then they're the jerk.
Right. If they say that, like, "Oh, you don't ever remember my name," I'm like, "Well, really, when you address a blind person, you're supposed to say, 'Hey Tanner, it's Brian,' and then start talking." Uh, so yeah, so I can drop that trump card there.
I love that you play with what you got, and I think that laughing at ourselves is one of the most healing and healthy things that we can do when we are faced with an obstacle that you can either say, oh, life's so hard and woe is me, or you could say, this is what I got and I'm doing the best I can with it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you can't laugh at yourself, what can you laugh at? And, not taking yourself too seriously is fundamental. But, laughter for me was so healing in the process of me getting over, those difficulties. So, man, I could not agree more. Everybody needs to laugh.
So I'm really wondering about something right now. So your wife had just walked into the room for a moment, and so I was thinking if that would have happened to me, I would have like my attention would have been totally like thrown off. Did you notice that your wife was in the room
Right now?
well? She was a moment ago.
Yeah, like I thought I just felt somebody like walk.
So there's an advantage, I guess, then of I guess some things don't distract you, and it would otherwise. I was wondering about that.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, right. Because, what that was a shiny thing. What was that shiny object? Like, look at that bird right there. Yeah. I don't, I do have that advantage. And yeah, so there's some things that I just don't catch. So that allows me to not lose focus as much because there's so much that we see. I mean, there's so much that our brain just like filters out, like, oh, you don't need to know that, even though we're seeing it. But especially with ADHD, like we're so hypersensitive to visual stuff, and for me too. Like I always was hypersensitive not only to visual stimulation but also audio stimulation.
Mm-hmm.
Man, if somebody was clicking their pen, or they were breathing all weird, or something like that, I could not. I just couldn't. I couldn't focus on anything.
It's like think about having like a 10 channel audio mixer, and it's like every single channel is cranked up, and you're hearing everything in like high def, even though that only one of those channels is relevant to what you actually need to be paying attention to.
Yes. I mean, exactly. And, with conversations too, that can be really difficult. Like, so she was quiet right now. So it was really easy for me to shift, focus back to you. Like I felt something on my arm, and also I told her, like, what was that? And then, then you were talking. So my attention's brought immediately back to you. But like in a crowded area, good luck.
Wow. So I mean, you have done some pretty incredible things, Tanner. I mean, wait, you let me see if I remember this. You play blind baseball?
Yes, sir.
Let's just dive right in there, because so I can only imagine what that's like. Is there like a ball that makes noise? Is that
Yeah. So I want to give a little backstory on that. So like when I was recovering, I was really coming to terms with stuff. This was before I moved out. I was going to college and stuff. And, so I was digging around in the closet, and I come across this piece of leather, and I'm like, what's this? And so like I pull it out of the closet underneath some clothes, and immediately I knew it was a baseball glove. So I like put it on and like pretended to catch the ball, and like crow hop and throw the big play, and get, game winning play, threw him out at home. And then I literally said out loud to myself, like, Tanner, that part of your life is over. It's really just about coming to terms. And then 4 years later on the news, I saw blind baseball, and I was like, what the hell is that? And so I just figured it out, where they were at, went out there very next weekend. And so, yeah, blind baseball is the ball beeps, but that's actually for the defense so that they can locate the ball and pick it up. When we do batting practice, because balls are so expensive, we actually don't have them on, or we use dead balls because they run about $35-$40 a ball. But so for the offense, the pitcher is on the batter's team, right? It's not like a pitcher's like throwing fastballs and curveballs trying to strike you out, right? So, it's my job to swing in the same spot every time, and to swing when the pitcher, he'll say ready, set, ball. And so that's how I time it when to swing. And then the pitcher's job is to find me and find my bat. And then when that happens, like when we make contact, either first base or third base, there's only two bases, first and third, either one of those will turn on, and it creates this continuous buzzing sound. And there's about a 36-inch high, like kind of tackling dummy, this like foam, this like vinyl encased foam pad, and it has a buzzer in it, and it's buzz. And so you just run to the base, and if the defense picks up the ball before you get there, it's an out. If not, if you get there first, it's a run.
That's so cool. I got to see like a video of that. That's incredible.
Oh, Oh my gosh. Yeah, everybody can go to NBBA, National Beep Baseball Association, nbba.org. That's the main site. And you can check out a video right there on the homepage.
And what I think is just so incredible about that, and I'm sure some other stories you're going to be sharing with us, is it takes a situation that it'd be really easy to say, oh, I can't do that, turns that thought completely on its head and asks a very different question. That's, how can I do that?
Oh my gosh. So when I was first blind, like I would pee all over the floor. I could not.
Because you were just pissed, or because you just missed.
You guys are cleaning this up. No, well, just because I didn't know how to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because we see it and we can aim, but and even then, who knows what's going to happen? But yeah, like like brushing my teeth was such a pain in my butt. I would do my best to put the toothpaste on the toothbrush. I would do my best to put the brush in my mouth and do that before toothpaste ends up on the counter, on my shirt, on my face. And I just could not do it. And it would drive me insane. And then one day I was just like, well, why do I need to put the toothpaste on the toothbrush first? Why don't I just put it right in my mouth? And so that's how now I brush my teeth. I just put the toothpaste in my mouth first and then start brushing my teeth. And I haven't had toothpaste on my shirt or face since.
That's brilliant. It's like I love that the idea of how do you just completely redefine like what we do and how we do it by doing something that, I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it was kind of it was a paradigm shift. Because here I am, I'm a sighted person thinking in sighted ways and, trying to live in a sighted world. But yeah, I don't have any of that. And so this rehab teacher told me, when we boil water, how do we know it's boiling? It's like before we ever look to confirm that it's boiling, we hear those bubbles.
Mm-hmm.
That's what grabs our attention. And then we look and we're like, oh, the water's boiling. But we didn't really need to look to know the water's boiling, right? We could hear it. So it's just it's just like when you can approach things differently, that's how you can really unlock the doors to being able to leverage your abilities to achieve the same outcome, just in a different way.
Well, Tanner, what we're going to do really quickly, we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk even more about some of the things that you are doing to leverage what you've learned how to do and really just to redefine what really is possible. So we will be right back. This podcast is brought to you by ADHD Rewired Coaching and Accountability Group. Next session begins in early May. To see how much you can save by signing up before March 1st, go to coachingrewired.com. Hurry, because this price won't last and it will only be given to the first 6 people who sign up before March 1st. Go to coachingrewired.com and prepare to get your ADHD rewired. Boom, boom, boom,
audibletrial.com/ADHD rewired for your free download. Trial.com/ADHD rewired. Trial.com/ADHD rewired. Go to audibletrial.com/ADHD rewired for your free audiobook download. Hey, are you an entrepreneur who hates looking at balance sheets or dealing with the details of the financial health of your business? I'm currently listening to a book right now that is great and is even holding my attention. The book is called Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. And one of the things that I love about this audiobook is that he kind of riffs off of the book. So as he's reading the book, he'll kind of add his own thoughts in addition to the text. It's a great book. I am listening to it now. I think you will like it.
And we are back with Tanner Gears. Tanner, welcome back.
Hey, that took a little bit too long. I've got to go. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I know it was the 3-second break. People are like that who I'm talking with on the podcast. There was like, wait, what? We're back. And even though I walk through that part before we hit record, it seems to still throw you off.
Yeah. Well, I just like to laugh and so sorry.
Don't let it happen again. We don't like laughter here.
Okay. It's all serious.
All right. So you got some gold medals. Tell us a little bit more about some of your athletic accomplishments.
Working on that. Thank you so much. I'm really proud of my most recent one, which is actually I got into cycling, and I am a speed and power athlete. So I like running fast. I don't like running far. And, so I was looking for a complementary way of training because, like I'm a 100-meter sprinter, I'm a long jumper. And when my coach, when the U.S. national team coach or the director of high performance said, "Hey, Tanner, you should run the 200-meter," I said, that's like an eighth of a mile. I don't know. But so that's how little I like distance. But I was looking for a way to complement that kind of training because I can only handle about 2 days on the track, and I'm kind of walking crooked in between those. It's just a lot of stress on the body. I don't think a lot of people appreciate that, especially at my ripe young age of 32. And so I found cycling. I was like, I can just use this in between my track workouts. And then someone said, you'd be really good at track cycling. And I said, what is that? And they said, oh, it's just like cycling, but it's really short distances and it's on a track. It's indoors. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, well, what's the shortest distance? And they said 1 kilometer. And I was like, oh, that's like 2/3 a mile. And they said, well, it only takes like a minute. And I was like, okay, that's kind of more up my alley. It's like as hard as you can go for 1 minute. And so in December, I was at Colorado Springs at the Olympic Training Center up there for the national championships of track cycling, and very, very proud because I just kind of started cycling in August. From September to December, I actually only had 8 days on the tandem bike with my pilot, and I only had 6 days in total of ever being on a velodrome, which is the track of 6 days of velodrome experience. And on that 6th day, we won the gold medal for the kilo or the 1K, the 1 kilometer. And we had not only the gold medal for our classification, but we had the fastest kilo across all classifications. And we also had the fastest lap across all classifications. So I was super pumped about that.
Is that unusual? I mean, to think about you just like started in this specific sport and you're killing it.
Well, I'm just super motivated. And I think that is the thing that separates me from other people, because, thinking about like I hadn't been, so besides the week that we drove up to Colorado and the 4 days of training, 2 days before the competition, 2 days of the competition. And besides those few days, I only had a couple days with a pilot between September and December. And I think a lot of athletes, a lot of people would have gotten discouraged and said, hey, I'm not going to be able to do this. Like there's not enough time on the bike. My pilot and I haven't gotten to know each other. Whatever your excuse is. But you know what? I have a stationary bike and I have a gym. And so I'm lifting weights and I'm cycling on my stationary bike. And anybody that's ridden a stationary bike knows how absolutely mind-numbingly boring it is. But that's the kind of sacrifice that you need to make when you've got a goal that you want to achieve. Are you going to put in the work? Are you going to put in the reps? Or and achieve the highest level of potential that you have, or are you gonna not?
It's funny you say about how mind-numbingly boring that is. I during the winter, I have a indoor recumbent bike, which I get on almost every single morning. And about a week ago, my iPad had died. It wasn't like plugged in correctly overnight, so I had no juice on that. And I didn't have, I'm trying to remember why, but I basically had nothing to listen to. I usually listen to either podcasts or audiobooks. And then I also will play like a game or something on my iPad while I'm working out. And I didn't have either of these. And I'm like 4 minutes into my workout. I'm like, oh my God, this is torture.
Oh yeah.
And so I actually used it as an opportunity to kind of do a little meditation, kind of exercise based meditation. But it was hard kind of getting into that mental space. Because it's not exciting when it's just you and, you're pedaling hard going nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, when the wind's in your face and you're outside, like there's stimulus, there's there's interaction with the environment around you. There's not that when you're alone. And I think that cycling, for me, one of the greatest benefits mentally has been achieving this new state of awareness, this new level of mental power and tapping into what's possible. Because I mean, I've gotten off the bike and, I'm training for the 1K, right? So these are like super high intensity efforts. The most I'd ever gone without, the longest interval would probably be about 5.5 minutes. And that's as hard as I can go for 5.5 minutes. But, I'm getting off the bike. Like I can't like really, I feel like I can't stand, like I'm laying on the ground. I'm like shaking and, but that is a side effect of what happens after getting off the bike. But while I'm on the bike, in order to be able to push yourself that far, you have to tap into a greater mental focus. You have to tap into this new level that I was never able to achieve before. And especially when you're not listening to music, you're not binging on Netflix or iTunes or whatever. It is something different. But like I said, like that stuff, like getting on that podium, like for me, like that's like stepping it, like made all the work worthwhile. Like all the times where it was like, hey, I got to get in this workout. Like it's gonna suck. I'm gonna like not enjoy it, but it was all worth it.
Does your motivation, does it fluctuate?
Doesn't everybody's motivation fluctuate?
Well, and, I'm just hearing everything that you're doing. And I'm just like, damn, it's like, well, what excuse do I have at any given day when I don't feel like doing something? I mean, you're just like, it's like you're climbing Everest every day. Right. What do you do to keep that focus? Like if someone would have come up to you and say, Tanner, man, how do you do this? Like what's your kind of mental secret sauce? Like, what would you say that is?
I am a big believer in the basics, but I do want to say that my motivation fluctuates on a daily. And I do have bad days. I mean, there's days where I want to do nothing. And not only do I want to do nothing, but I feel sad. And, I call my mom and I'm like, Mom, like, I don't know why I'm sad. Like, I have so much to be grateful for. My life is amazing. And yet I feel like crap. So yes, my motivation does fluctuate on a daily basis. I am not some kind of like superhuman motivation man, but everybody needs to find, something to motivate them. So, motivation is on a daily. I think that I'm inspired to achieve these levels of greatness, but what helps me find that motivation and keep on track, stay inspired to go day in and day out is, like I said, I'm about the basics. It's really about the goals and goal setting. And I'm not talking about like, oh, I have a goal of doing this. I'm talking about like writing down my goals in a very specific fashion and repeating them, reciting them at least twice a day. And that's normally when I wake up and I'm just kind of like rolling around in bed and before I'm going to bed, because I'm going to be in bed and there's not going to be much going on anyway. So might as well get my mind right and smile about me achieving my goals, reciting my goals and getting after them. And then when things get difficult, it's really easy to go back to those goals and say, hey, like, why am I doing this? Oh yeah. Like this is the end result for me. it's a marathon. And I'm on step 3,427, and I've got thousands more to go. But it's so going to be worth it when you keep that end goal in mind. Remember, from the beginning of the call, it could always be worse. And maintaining that perception, reminding myself of my goals, that's how I find motivation. I also find motivation on YouTube via, I've got I'll watch videos. If I really need to get it going, I'll watch some motivational videos, and which is also nice too, because it's like you can take a break and, just I stand or I walk around my apartment and I'm holding my phone, listening to these YouTube videos. And then it's like, okay, let's crush it. Let's get back.
What are some of your goals for the upcoming year?
So, this is a big year for me. It's 2016. It's a Paralympic year. I'm also on track. All right. So first off, one of my number one goals is to become the greatest offensive beatball player that has ever played the game, ever known to play the game. And so I'm on track to do that right now. Second number one goal is to be a 2016 Paralympian. The third number one goal is to be a U.S. Paralympian in 2 sports in Rio. My fourth number one goal is to, end up by December of 2016, be bringing home $10,000 a month, every month on autopilot. And that's not about the money. Really, it's about, I use dollars as kind of, like, I know the value that I'm bringing, and it exceeds $10,000 every month. But that's kind of the like, I guess you want to say, like, scoreboard points for entrepreneurship.
Sure.
Right. So, those are kind of just tangible markers to know that, hey, not only am I creating great content, but it's resonating with people, and it's doing it to such a degree that I am fluidly on autopilot making 10K a month. And there's some other milestone goals in there, but those are the 4 big ones. So continuing to work towards being the greatest offensive beatball player that's ever played the game, becoming a U.S. Paralympian, in 2 sports in 2016, and fluid, 10K on autopilot each month in my business.
Tanner, those are some very tenacious goals. I'm sitting here looking at my desk and be like, man, if I can just clear my desk off, I'm going to finish this year with a bang.
You might find 10K under all those papers.
Well, it's funny. I have shared before. I was doing one of my adult study halls during my coaching group, and I actually found $150 of gift cards in a pile that I completely forgot about. And so it's, going through those piles can pay dividends. One of the questions that I had, Tanner, was, first of all, I think it's awesome that you were able to just recite those. Clearly, knowing your goals is something that is very, you own that, you know that. What about, have you broken those things down for yourself so you know what you need to do this quarter, this month, this week, and today to help you achieve those goals?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So, that's what I was getting at when I said those milestones, right? So when we know the end goal, everybody, so it's so important to write down the goals, because we got to know the quote unquote, the final destination, right? And once we know where point B is, then we can figure out all the dots between A and B. And so, I like to work backwards from that. So, like, let's just say with my business, right? Let's do that, because I'm sure that they're, especially with that podcast in December on entrepreneurship and the ADHD think tanks, which was an awesome podcast episode, by the way. There's some people with ADHD that, are probably entrepreneurs. And even if you're not an entrepreneur, maybe you're trying to get ahead in your business or you're trying to get ahead in your life. So let's use, the tangible or the more relevant goal of me making $10,000 on autopilot in a month. So, where I find that to be is going to be in a continuity program, in a membership program, all right, and in a coaching program where I have, people paying, the total sum of $10,000 cumulatively each month. And, so that would be the last milestone and the manifestation of that goal. So as I move backward from that is I've got to initiate that membership program. And I've got to, moving back from that is I already have the ideas for that membership program. So that would be another peeling back is how am I going to make that happen? Is it going to be on Facebook? Is it going to be a membership website? Is it going to be, Skype calls or online calls or talks or webinars? Then peeling that back even further is building an audience that would be interested in doing that. So how am I going to do that? Well, that's going to be done through tannergears.com, right? I'm going to have the podcast. I'm going to have other great people on that podcast like Eric Tivers to be sharing their message, their content, their awesomeness, and attracting the type of people that I want to be working with in my business. It's going to be creating products along the way. It's going to be listening to my audience and figuring out what it is that they want and then creating that. And that is going to be the structure, the foundation, the framework for that membership, for that continuity program. Does my audience respond well to Facebook? Maybe. Does my audience respond better to email? Possibly. Maybe it's online video content. Those are all things that I have in my mind and milestones that I've created for myself that ultimately build up to that long-term goal. So for you, if it's, getting to that next promotion, it's how are you going to be a leader today? How are you going to create the value in the eyes of your boss to give you that promotion? Not only that, but figuring out what tickles their fancy. How are you going to communicate the productivity, the achievements that you've done to show, hey, I have this value. Not only do I have that value, I'm actually well beyond that value. And so you'd be doing yourself a favor by giving me that promotion. I'm worth an additional 100K, but you're going to give me that 20K raise because I deserve it. And, and it goes from there.
Hey, Tanner, can I invite you to step into the coaching box for a sec?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's do this. So there's been a couple of books that I've listened to recently that kept talking about the concept of we know what a post-mortem is, but what they were talking about was a pre-mortem. And so it's to imagine a perceived or potential failure and to think about what was the reason for the failure. Can you take one of the goals that maybe you shared with us and imagine, do a pre-mortem for that, and then think about what can you do to respond to that so that pre-mortem, that reason for failure maybe doesn't happen?
Oh my gosh. So, yeah, I mean,
not to put you on the spot or anything.
No, right. And I just want to let your audience know that failure is going to happen.
Yes.
Right? So it's going to happen. It is just going to happen. So it's not about getting all upset when it does happen. It's about, the first word to that question is what, not why, but what. What is the reason for this? Not why did this happen, but what is the reason for this? What can I learn from this? What can I take away from this experience to leverage my ability, my knowledge, my understanding about any given situation to position myself in a better way? So let's just say that I've started to build this audience. I've got my podcast humming along. I've got my website going. I am at, a few thousand newsletter subscribers. We'll call it 2,500. And, I'm crushing it like ADHD rewired.
So kiss up. Go ahead.
So,
You can do that all day long, by the way. I'm okay with that.
am I filling you up there?
Filling me up. Yeah, absolutely. We were talking earlier before we hit record, and Tanner was just, saying some really nice things about the podcast. And I just told them that, those kinds of things just fill me up, and I don't get tired of hearing them. So, yes, thank you. So you're filling me up.
So let's say I've got all that, right? So I've got this foundation, and I really feel like, my audience is going to respond to certain programs. So I invest in Facebook advertising. I get this amazing email sequence set up. I think that I'm crushing it, and it's all built up around this webinar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And no one shows up. No one's clicking on the Facebook ads. No one's subscribing. The email list doesn't respond. And it's sad, right? I'm depressed. I'm like, well, what the F? What is going on? So if you can, how I've conditioned myself, if you guys haven't picked up on it, I have failed so many times. Yeah, I've got a few successes that stand out, but no one knows how many times I've failed to get to those. So I've conditioned myself. I don't say why did this happen? Why did these Facebook ads not work? Why did no one sign up for my webinar? It's like, what is it about a webinar that wasn't working? What was it about my Facebook ads that weren't working? What was it about my email correspondence? What was it about the copy that I wrote that wasn't resonating with my audience? And so you might strategize with a survey. You might get some business coaching on that, which I highly recommend. You might share what you've done with other people, like a mastermind or some objective third-party person. Say, hey, this is what happened. What do you think? Can you give me some fresh eyes, a fresh opinion on this? And then, it's not what happened to you. What are you going to do about it? Then restructuring, maybe based on the survey response, maybe, switching your copy around, whatever it is, figuring out what resonates with your audience. And now, mind you, you've built an audience, right? I've got 2,500 people on my newsletter. I've got, my podcast is humming along like ADHD Rewired. There is something about you that people are loving, but you just haven't figured out how to dial it in a way that they're going to lay down their credit card for, right? So what are you going to do? How are you going to change or take a different approach to resonate with your audience? Now, does that mean that your goals get pushed back a little bit? Maybe, in terms of a deadline, but that does not mean that you don't continuously move forward. Keep going. And what can you learn from this situation? Not why did it happen, but what?
And I really think and hope that everyone who is listening can really resonate with this message. To me, what you just described is the whole idea of from a behavioral standpoint, how do we rewire when something doesn't work? It's okay. Yes. So what we just tried didn't work. Awesome. Let's learn from that. We just learned something, and now we're closer to figuring out what does work. So it seems like you're not even phased, in a sense, by the failure. Yes, it does it hurt? Absolutely. Is it? Yeah. There is. I also think from the realm of ADHD and entrepreneurship, I think there is a connection between ADHD and the kind of desire to kind of cultivate almost an entrepreneurial lifestyle, because it's exciting. There's a lot of high adrenaline. There's risk involved. All those things kind of light up our brain. So with that, what would you say then would be your potential pre-mortem of these goals that you've kind of set out for the year?
You mean like, what's my plan to achieve those goals?
Yeah. So what would you say is the, so let's say one of my goals, let's say if it were, to, maybe create a membership, similar to yours. Let's say I wanted to create a membership community, right? And so let's say I do a pre-mortem on it and say, okay, it failed. It didn't work. What do I think would be the reason for the failure? Kind of hypothesizing over that. So as I kind of talk through this and think through this, I might think about, okay, so I created this idea of this membership site. It sounded good for me. Maybe one of the reason it failed was I bit off too much this year, or maybe it was the platform that I chose didn't work for what I wanted to do. So I think, because we don't want to be worriers, but I think that if you actually have that in a sense that's like structured worrying, or it's okay, what could potentially actually go wrong?
Right.
But have that actually be a useful exercise, and then look at, okay, how likely is this to happen? And then plan around that, and then stop worrying.
Right. And you got to do it. Right. So, it makes me, so my pre-mortem then would be, is what was it about my funnel? What was it about everything that I'm doing that ultimately didn't lead to them signing up for the membership platform? And you know what's so funny is that, as I just thought this, is that, maybe it's your audience doesn't want to be in a membership platform.
Right.
Maybe it's that they're into buying one little nugget at a time that they would have gotten in the membership program anyway, but they can't. Being in a membership, being in this like really comprehensive, holistic program is too much for them to bite off. So maybe it's that you restructure it to do these individual things. But what my pre-mortem, I guess, like what I'm trying to do to like why that may not have been successful is because there was something that I said. I didn't answer their questions appropriately enough to say, hey, this is for me. And it probably was for them. There is probably content value that far exceeds what they were ever going to pay for it, or the time that they were going to invest, which is, fundamental. You got to give more than what you charge. That's just the cost of doing business. That's just good business. But is that I didn't answer their questions. What questions didn't I answer that pushed them closer to making that investment with me? What is it about my message that they don't know, like, and trust enough to make them say, hey, this is for me? So I hope that I answered that correctly, because the pre-mortem is a new term for me. So did I hit that okay?
Yeah, no, it was just, it's an idea that's been stirring kind of around in my head as I have, this year, I've really been personally diving into how do I really create this business, really grow this brand of ADHD Rewired. 'Cause one of the things I read or listened to in the book E-Myth, and I forgot who I was sharing this with. So I used to, E-Myth is one of those books that was like, I have had multiple people recommend it to me over the years. And I was, and I know that it was like, it's an old book. It's like, oh, how good could it be? Like, if it's so old, like it's on technology. I didn't realize that E has nothing to do with like, electronic. It's with E is for entrepreneur. I was like, oh yeah, I shouldn't have judged so quickly. So I read, I think, or listened to this book, and I think it was like a couple others. It was, sometimes you read certain things, you listen to certain things, and it's like, it was like the triangulation of a number of different people presenting very similar information that it makes the light bulb kind of go off. And so from E-Myth, one of the things they said is that, there's lots of people who are entrepreneurs who are craftsmen, who are really good craftsmen and want to do their craft. And so they start their business because they love what they do. But there's a difference between being an entrepreneur and owning a business and being an entrepreneur and owning a job. And most entrepreneurs own a job. And that was, as I've been learning delegation and learning how to really build a team. Because those are skill sets that I am, I have the most opportunity for growth in that area. So it's exciting for me. And so this is the year that I'm really looking at growing a business, a viable business that doesn't require me to be working 80 plus hours a week, because that's just not sustainable. Nor is that's something that's not a lifestyle that I want to live. I feel so fortunate. I love like 93% of the work that I do. Like I love it. Like what we're doing right now, having this conversation, this is play to me. This is enjoyable to me. Creating videos, doing things like that, working with clients, doing my coaching groups, doing individual therapy. Those are things that I love to do. I need to learn how to leverage a lot of my time and really be thinking through the processes of how do I do everything. So, if I were to be, not able to work for whatever reason, that my brand, the mission behind my brand can continue, because I think it's such a valuable, mission that people want to hear stories and have it be rooted in science, and have this message that people are sharing very vulnerably of themselves, so that other people can learn from the stories and the struggles that we have had, so people know that they're not alone. I don't want it to be just me, because if I die tomorrow, ADHD Rewired is, it will live on in iTunes, but nothing new is going to come out of it, right?
Right.
And so for me, that has been, I've always viewed myself as a systems thinker. And now I'm really trying to apply the systems approach into all of the tasks that I do, so I can, really create an operation for my brand and for this business that can help more and more people, with allowing me to live the life that I want, being balanced between my family, between work, and I want to get back into some of my hobbies that have been kind of put on the back burner. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do over the next year.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I think it's so important for your audience to hear that. Anybody that is getting ready to start a business or is the young stages of starting a business, is to really document everything that you do on a regular basis. Not only does that let you look back and evaluate what you're doing, but what's working and what's not, so that you can do more of what is and what isn't, and so that you can delegate when it's time, when a little revenue is coming in, or when you've actually dove in headfirst and you're ready to bring on someone to assist you. You've got those systems, you've got that documented, and you can say, hey, this is what you need to do. And then so they can ask you questions or whatever if they're not sure about something, but you've already got everything laid out for them. Mm-hmm. And that will let you pull away and do more of what you love, do more of the interviews, do more of the talking, do more of the therapy, do more of that content creation, the stuff that you love, and minimizing the stuff that you don't, which will thus then open up time for your family, for your hobbies, etc. And I wanted to share a big win for me recently is that, I've hired a few different people to do website stuff for me in the past, and that has been the real big gorilla on my back, because I'm awesome at creating content, but how is it going to get out there? Because I am not good due to the screen reading technology. For those who don't know, being totally blind, I have a screen reader that reads text on the computer. Well, if it's WordPress, or even if it's like recording a podcast or these other things, I can't see them, so I can't use the mouse and just click. I can't drag and drop. I can't crop a picture. Even just looking for pictures, anyway, there's these hurdles. So I recently stepped outside of my comfort zone and really just kind of loosened the reins a little bit, and which allowed myself to grow. So what I did is I partnered with an individual who does websites for a living, and he does a fantastic job. And I told him, the deal was, I offered him 50-50. I said, hey, look, I'll create the content, you create the tech stuff, and we'll go right down the middle on it. And he goes, dude, the content is so big, like the web stuff is so easy for me. Let's do 70-30. like 70 for me and 30 for him. And I was like, yes. Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's really allowed me to focus and not have that monkey on my back where it's like, hey, I don't know how this is going to happen or this, that, or the other thing. And it has allowed me to open up my time and really, spend time with, like ADHD Rewired and other podcasts and shows and sharing my message and really trying to have an influence on other people. So, yeah, I think that, creating those systems and creating that network, figuring out the ways that you can, get into ownership and actually have working capital that works for you rather than you working some piece of capital is huge. And that, I'm looking forward to hearing how that goes in your journey, because that's really the next level.
Yeah. And it's exciting because, one of the reasons that I do so much coaching and presenting on productivity is because in time management, because I didn't understand it. Like I had to really break it down and get going deep to it so I can better myself, so I can get where I wanted to go. And so I feel that now this is kind of the next kind of frontier of delegation and system kind of management, of understanding how do we leverage ourselves. And I'm excited about this because I know who I am, and I'm the type of person that when I don't understand something, I will go in so deep and I will get to the point where I understand it so well that I can then teach it and help other people with these similar challenges. I'm not at the teaching point yet, not even close. I'm still learning it, but I feel that this is my next kind of frontier for learning. And it's exciting.
That is so exciting. I'm so happy for you, brother.
And so I think that both of us are on this journey. I think that you're gonna have so many awesome, just your perspective on, just on life, let alone, productivity, time management, training, kind of mental strategy. All those things I think are going to be just so valuable. And I think that probably motivation can just rub off just being in your presence.
Oh,
On you, man. So you're just doing some incredible stuff. And I want to congratulate you. And it just, it's inspiring, truly inspiring.
Eric, thank you so much, man. I that means a lot to me because I see what you're doing and you're doing some amazing stuff. So to hear those compliments, it's really humbling. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. And thank you for sharing the hour and change with us here on ADHD Rewired. Tanner, do me a favor. Let people know where they can reach you. I'll always put all the links on the show notes. So just give people the URL and all the places where you're at so people can find out more information about what you are doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I hope that your listeners found this valuable. I've got a couple places that I'm most active. Of course, Twitter at Tanner Gears, TANNERGERS. So it's Gers, but pronounced Gears. And you can check me out on there. I'm on Instagram, got a couple Facebook pages, and but the two main websites that I'm doing right now are the athletesummit.com. That's a membership website for sports performance, and it's really designed for coaches to take their athletes and their programs to the next level. So you can check that out at theathletesummit.com. And then also too, absolutelylean.com, which is my health and fitness website. Really getting ready to pump out a lot of new content on that. Super excited. Going to be launching a podcast in 2016. I've got the Complete Detox 21 program coming out. And of course, as soon as I can get like the boss man I'm talking to right now, I'll be having TannerGears.com and putting out a podcast for that. So, which is heavily influenced by what you're doing, Eric. So thank you for that.
Oh, I appreciate you saying that. Tanner, give our listeners just a final kind of parting piece of wisdom that's going to help them, our listeners, and all of us get our ADHD rewired. What is it?
Well, what I would say, if you can take one thing away from this call, it is to make plans like an adult and believe in them like a child.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much, Tanner. This was a lot of fun, and I wish you all the best. And you'll have to let us know how many goals you get.
You know it, brother. Hopefully I'll be on in the future like some of your other repeat guests.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you for listening to another episode of ADHD Rewired. And if you're new to the show, welcome to ADHD Rewired. We are more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. You can see a full outline of this and all other episodes with all the links and other resources mentioned during this interview at ADHDrewired.com. Help support this podcast by checking out my sponsors. I use Zoom video conferencing nearly every day, and so can you. Go free or go pro. But please go to erictibbers.com/Zoom so they know that I sent you. And you can get a free audiobook from Audible at erictibbers.com/Audible. And next time you shop Amazon, use the Amazon search portal at ADHDrewired.com. A small percentage of your purchase will go to support this show, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. You can also support this podcast by leaving an honest rating and review in iTunes or Stitcher. This really helps other people find this show. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Don't just be a passive listener, be an active member of the ADHD Rewired community. We are on Facebook. You can like our page, but please submit your request to join our free and growing community. And don't forget to check your other inbox because I screen everybody before they come into our community.
Looking for a coach? If you're still listening at this point and you answered yes, come to my website at ADHDrewired.com and schedule your free 20-minute consultation, or call me at 224-993-9450. Is your school, business, or organization hiring speakers? I provide fun and engaging presentations full of practical solutions that both educate and entertain. Hire me for your next professional development day or corporate training event. Go to ADHDrewired.com/talks. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.